Gentlemen, the time has come once again to discuss things.
It is I, the one, the only.
I can't exactly leave and prep, so just go for it.
Yeah, I don't know. It's one of those characters we know enough about. Alright, hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Geeky Gentlemen. I am Super2. Joining me today is...
Alfie, a geek for fun.
Yay! Today we're here to talk about everybody's favorite boy from the Bat fam, Jason Todd. Yeah. It was funny, we were doing, this recorded a couple days after we did the, War Games Act 3, and I'm like, oh man, we gotta talk about Jason Todd at some point, because he's one of those characters I've got a lot to say about. And I think, Alfie, I think you and I are kind of on the same page with Jason Todd. Is that fair to say, or do you have, like, radical hot take opinions on Jason Todd?
No, I feel like the majority of the circles we roll in, not even just on the internet, is just in general of Bat family fans, even Jason Todd fans, kind of fall on this side of the opinion. It's the other side is the outlier.
Okay. In what regard? Like, who's the outlier?
The outlier are the people who are happy with his current setup.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know how many people are happy with his current setup where he's, like, in the Bat family, but still, like, this weird... I don't even know what his current setup is, to be honest with you. I've read, like, one issue... No, I haven't even read an issue of Red Hood and the Outlaws since Rebirth. I read the Jason Todd vs. Anarchy issue leading up to the wedding, and that just had him with the Outlaws. That's about the extent of my Jason Todd solo Rebirth experience. So yeah, I guess I don't really know much about what his current setup is, except that he's got an awful costume.
It's basically that, and just the same as like what it was in New 52 is they've thrown him in another group so they can pretend he's not part of the Bat family, but they also still want him to be part of the Bat family, and he's just kind of the guy that hangs around family meetings but also shoots people in the face and no one talks about it.
Yeah, like that's the awkward part of... Okay, so when Jason Todd died, it was kind of this, not a turning point, but it was this moment in, like, infamous moment in comic book history. And I'll probably be the controversial Batman opinion here. Death in the Family sucks. It's an awful, not only Batman story, but story. It's bad. But then when they brought him back, him being a villain, not an anti-hero, a straight-up villain with somewhat arguable morals, was such a goddamn stroke of luck, because the second that they teased Jason Todd was coming back, everyone and their brother was like, oh, he's going to be just, this excuse to resurrect character, yada yada. The choice to make him unabashedly a villain, I thought, was absolutely brilliant. And then, as soon as we had it like water through your fingers, it just disappeared. You could see it happen, but you didn't know how to stop it. And it was so disappointing. That's kind of how I feel about it. It's like, because when he's a villain and, like, you could maybe give him a solo series, it's like his own Punisher book, but you really would need to hammer it in that there's something really wrong with this kid, and it never materialized properly.
Yeah, I feel like, again, I'm gonna kind of segment this because, like you said at the beginning of this, I have a lot of things to say about Jason Todd as well, and I think like he's wrapped up in so many things with DC and comic book history and legacy characters and resurrection and so much baggage. You can't really do a succinct like talk on him, but I think I'll just for now as Tokus. Okay, so Jason Todd as Robin as an idea. That as because a lot of people have problems with him as Robin as well. Before we even get into his resurrection, like just that as a character, it's his most publicly known identity. It's the thing that pop culture has latched onto the most. Is even if you don't know he came back as Red Hood, you know, oh, a Robin died is like kind of a general thing, and that's a really big impact. And I think he really works as you can never follow up Dick Grayson. Simply because he was of the original, it's his identity, and I really respect them, especially in later years, as we've kind of touched on how toxic that really is. I always see Batman and Robin, Bruce and Dick as a brother relationship rather than a father and son. And when Bruce lost his brother, he really immediately didn't take it well because, again, he's not the one of the maturity in that relationship. He didn't take it well, and he needed someone back. He needed someone to fill that void because he didn't like losing another family member, how it ended. Jason didn't need a big brother. Jason needed a father, and Bruce couldn't be that for him. And that whole Bruce wanting him to be something he can't, and Jason wanting Bruce to be something that he can't as a duo is obviously immediately destined to fail. But it's also a really interesting like narrative dynamic that we never touch on. Like if we're gonna do like flashback stories, I think there's so much narrative potential for more Jason Todd as Robin stories with Bruce than there's ever like brought up. And again, we're just talking about missed potential, and we're not even into the real missed potential stuff. But it's like so infuriating. But yeah, I really feel like Jason Todd as Robin, the fact that he's kind of a brat, but he's not as far gone as Damian was. He's just like a troubled kid who Bruce was he wasn't mature enough at that point. He hadn't learned enough lessons at that point to really get into it. And if you take Dick as the Robin gone right and what Robin as an idea can be done to the best, Jason's when you get to play with, okay, let's take a look at child sidekick a little more literally, and oh fuck, this is awful. And I really appreciate it for that, and I feel like him dying or even him living, if you wanted to do like a animated series where Jason Todd is Robin and the whole arc is Bruce eventually redeems him, that's still a really good story, but it's never played up with, and Death in the Family certainly didn't live up to that potential.
Yeah, that's the thing. Death in the Family, the way I've always thought about it is, if I name a random... Death in the Family is like in the 400s, 500s of Detective Comics, if I'm remembering correctly. So if I name like a random issue of Detective Comics, like issue number, I don't know, 395, can you remember what happens in that issue?
No.
Yeah, exact same thing if Death in the Family. If Robin had not died, no one would remember what happened in that story. There'd be no reason to. Like maybe someone would know, oh, this is the story where they almost decided to kill Robin, but the votes saved him. That's exactly what would have happened. And so Death in the Family is just such a forgettable story, and it's more important than it is good. And so you've just got this baggage of this fucking Robin costume in a display case in the Batcave, and there's really something to that, and I feel they got a lot of mileage out of it. Hell, if it was even in the fucking Batman v Superman movie, and like it just, yeah, you could kind of see, you could kind of see some of the broodiness come through in that. It's a really, really good set piece and motivation piece, and that's kind of what we're left with after Death in the Family. And then, you know, fast forward post Infinite Crisis, Superboy Prime Punch, and we get Jason Todd comes back in Hush. In Under the Hood, written by Judd Winnick. Now that story arc, a lot of people tend to rag on, and I guess I just have a little bit fonder memories for it, but from what I understand, it doesn't hold up super well, and the best version of it is the animated movie. Would you agree with that?
Well, like, I haven't actually read the book. From pure impressions from people, I was just like, well, I've got the animated movie. People keep saying it's the best version. I don't need to spend the extra money on the trade. I'll just say that's the canon.
I mean, I think I tend to agree. There are things missing from the animated movie that are there in the book and just work a lot better, but there are also things that the animated movie wisely decides to leave out. I don't know, for example, the Bloodhaven getting blown to smithereens is probably not the best thing to just try to fit in. Yeah, just there's a bunch of stuff, and like, you know, Black Mask kills a guy in the Red Hood costume, and like it's used as the cliffhanger to the end of an issue, and then like they take the helmet off at the beginning of the next issue, and it's just some dude that was fighting just like Jason. It was really, and I don't think we ever get an answer for who it was, so that was really weird. But regardless, like, there's a lot that goes on in the comic that's really not great. There's other stuff that I really, really like, though. Like, Talia al Ghul's relationship to Jason is played up a lot more in the book, whereas she's got a non-speaking role in the film, and, like, even the relationship to the Al Ghuls that Jason had in the book is really written over for the movie. And it was interesting to just look at what Winnick kept doing with Jason Todd, because for a while it was only him and Morrison that seemed to know how to write I'll take that back. Him, Morrison, and Daniel. That's right, Tony Daniel knew how to write a character. that knew how to write Jason Todd in a way that I think really worked. Because Winnick came back and he did Red Hood Lost Days, which I don't know if you read that.
I haven't read that, but I've actually read the Wikipedia article on it.
Yeah, that one was just super messed up.
He sleeps with Talia, right?
Yeah, it's like really, really and that seems like it's really superficial, but like it's played up as so fucking weird, and just like this is kind of like Jason Todd trying to get on the same level of Batman, and the sleeping with Talia thing is just a very much like a what kind of moment to have there, that gets us to that point. And even has, I'm pretty sure it's in Lost Days, where he says, trading with Batman, you begin to realize you've been having information withheld from you. Because he learned from every great martial artist in the world, and then taught that knowledge to you. But he adjusted it for his own vision, which means he took away how to kill. And so it was a really interesting look into the character there. So like that era, from, you know, the Under the Hood story up until Battle for the Cowl, is the golden era of Jason Todd for me.
See, I'd extend that a little bit to right up until after Batman and Robin Must Die.
Oh yeah, I forgot about him in that. Yeah, no, you're right. He's great. I completely forgot about him doing the more over-the-top Red Hood against Dick
You can't
Grayson.
forget about Pillhead Jason.
I forgot about it. I forgot. For some reason, I thought that fell after Battle for the Cowl, but no, it didn't. It was clearly right there.
But that is my peak of okay, this is what Jason Todd should be going forward, and can now become like the Riddler or the Joker and just be a villain in Batman's Rogues Gallery that will exist for all time. But then they immediately backtracked and fucked up.
Yeah, like he has this great moment in that story where he's like, "No, it's too late for me, far too late." Really reflecting off of the Killing Joke, you know, kind of establishing Jason Todd is going to be Dick Grayson's Joker, and then it's like, nope, he's in Batman Inc. and he's a good guy now, and yeah, that's just what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah, it's awkward. I guess the only, if I'm going to be generous to the he's a member of the Bat family thing, which I'm not inclined to be, but I'll do it anyway. If I'm going to be generous toward it, I guess I'd say, you know, Batman's on the Justice League with people who have killed. It's not their, like, go-to, but they've all done it.
That even that I have like I feel like even then that's like an almost entirely different discussion of Jesus Christ, Wonder Woman, you need to stop stabbing people. But like why does Superman and Batman work with this person which wields a sword 24/7? But like that aside, I get what you say, but even then it's never framed in the same way Jason's is. Mm-hmm. They're always like last resort. If lives are at stake, we'll kill. Jason is very much like the Frank Castle. Even if you're like a drug pusher, we'll get you off the streets, just kill you, bang, there, problem solved.
Mm-hmm. No, you're definitely right. It's awkward no matter how you frame it. Which was like, it was so good. Okay, so yeah, it goes from Under the Hood up until Batman and Robin pre-New 52. There's a brief window in what's it called? New 52 in Red Hood and the Outlaws, where he's got just a couple good moments that I really like. Like at the beginning of that book, he's sleeping with Starfire, and his old Red Hood uniform got kind of destroyed, and so she goes, "Oh, that Grayson boy left this here," and so he's wearing like an old Dick Grayson uniform.
Yeah, it's like the New 52 Eyes disco wig.
Yeah. And I really dig that for a couple different reasons. Of like this idea of Jason Todd like trying to fill the shoes in the most awkward and uncomfortable ways of these people from his previous life. I think that's really, really interesting to play with, and it's as bad as Red Hood and the Outlaws is, that clearly was not a mistake. That was a very intentional choice to do. And then there's also another story in that book where like they have to barter away something precious to them, mystical bullshit, blah blah blah, and Jason barters away his most precious memory, and it's this night that he was sick, and Bruce was going to go out on patrol alone because he was sick, but then Bruce decided to stay in, and they watched movies together, and it's like this really sweet moment, and they get through the quest and everything. And then at the end, Jason Todd says, "You can keep it," just walks away. And, like, that's that kind of shit that just does really, really work for me. Like, there's this really good sweet spot that we had him in, and then, yeah, just off, and I think it all went wrong with Death of the Family, oddly enough.
Iconic. These are the two stories that always end up fucking something over for him.
I know, like, Death of the Family ends with them defeating the Joker and everything, and then I don't remember if it was in the main book or if it was in the Red Hood and Outlaws book, but then Jason Todd kind of falls over and he's been poisoned by the Joker. Was like the end, and that's when I stopped caring. Because Bruce, like, ran to him to try to save him. I'm like, yeah, no thanks. That's the instant I stopped caring, because it got too messy. He shouldn't have been working with the Bat family at all, even if it was against the Joker. I I don't like it. It's not good. Yeah. He flew too close to the sun.
It's a good way to. I totally understand what you're saying, because I follow a couple of, without even reading the books, I follow a lot of Red Hood fans, and occasionally they'll post like panels now and again, so I'll end up like just curiously scrolling through it and seeing it. And there was one I really liked, which a lot of people use, and it's just like Jason's like injured or something, he's lost a lot of blood, so he's just like thinking of something, and he's like stood against a wall, and then like he sees himself in his Robin costume, and he's just looking up at Red Hood Jason, and the Robin Jason just says, "Wow, I'm a fucking loser." And then Jason's like, "Yeah, I know." I really like stuff like that, because there is, again, no matter how hard he's thrown into the absolute trash fires of comic book like anti-hero writing, boy, those can get bloody hot. There's always sparks, because at his core is a really good idea, and no matter how hard they try, they can't fully stamp that out.
Yeah, that's definitely it. The idea of, again, bringing him back as an anti-hero, but with a much harder lean toward villain, was just such a great concept that does a lot to invert the idea of the comic book resurrection. You know? Like, so often, I mean, Detective 1000 just came out, and they were just joking about it. We've all died. I haven't. Well, you will. We all died. Get over it. That's kind of what it's become, and it's disappointing. And Jason, initially, when he was brought back, was an inversion of that. And it just, it was such a bad plan to really go off and just, he became so forgettable. The second that they started having him just be all buddy with the Bat family again, it's so forgettable. Like, I love Tom King's run, and I think he writes Jason in a fun way, interacting with the Bat family and everything. It's enjoyable. It doesn't need to be him. It could be Cass. It could be Barbara. It doesn't need to be Jason.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't need to be a part of the family. It doesn't do the family any good, and it doesn't do him any good. It just makes everything awkward. Like,
you go ahead.
Like, I could maybe see... I could see, like, an Alfred story or something. I could see something where he interacts with Alfred, but he'll refuse to talk to anyone else. I could see, like, moments like that I could buy, but otherwise, just no. He just doesn't need to be around that family.
And if he is, it should be as an antagonistic force. It should be as someone that plays off them. Like, it says a lot for Jason, where he can be both as really fantastic arch enemy for Dick Grayson, and also, if they wanted to flip that, he could be a really fantastic arch enemy for Tim. And you could have these two, if you wanted to boost them up into, like, well, we're going to make them be a bit more relevant, there's their Joker. Either one of them could have him. And there's positives for both of them. I've seen great arguments on either side. And that would, like, kind of propel him to this more A-list status of being in a Batman book as a rogue. They're always going to get play. They're always going to get shine. They're always going to get arcs, rather than being this C-tier offshoot of Batman that he's kind of been reduced to. He's lost his luster because he's no longer a threat to Bruce, and therefore he's just another one of Bruce's people in the back who's not as competent as Dick Grayson. Like, what's the point of him? I've seen people argue, like, the whole he's the guy Batman doesn't want to admit, but that he needs, because occasionally you do need to, like, just kill people. But then again, I think no. That doesn't work with Batman's character at all. He should be a villain if he's got that mentality.
Yeah, no, that really doesn't work in the slightest. He should absolutely not... Batman's got a no-kill rule, and yeah, Batman's a hypocrite, but that's one of the few things where he's like, yeah, no, I'm not breaking this one. We've done backflips to avoid Batman breaking his no-kill rule. If he's just gonna, oh yeah, sometimes we need to kill people, his first person would be the Joker. Like, it doesn't work. It breaks character for both of them because, like, it's if Batman was like, okay, I'm not super cool with you killing, but sometimes I kind of need you to. If Bruce approached Jason with that, Jason would be like the little kid who's like super into a band until he finds out that their parents like it, and then suddenly isn't anymore. Like, that's exactly what Jason's reaction would be. It's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. It's just one of those things where I feel a lot of this is due to fandom. And because we had that golden period with Jason, where he, even if the stories weren't necessarily like amazing Batman stories, the ideas there were potent, the themes were potent, people liked the concept. They said, "Oh, this is the beginning of something. We're at the start of something." It's really nice to live through moments like that. So people will really like that, and a lot of the fandom, because again, it's kind of the Harley Quinn thing. Jason is a tragic character. You are supposed to sympathize with him to an extent. The problem with that is the more you can sympathize with someone, the more people start hammering for them to be redeemed, and then you get the fan art of like the Bat Boys and like everyone's hanging around and joking. DC immediately sees, oh, there's a market for just Jason being chill with everyone. People really like that. People write in that. The fan base responds really well to that. When people do that, it's more in the case of like memes or just fan art. They're not really being totally serious about it, but DC kind of latched onto it, and now it's here for real. And I mean,
that's the tragedy of the character. You can't go back now.
Yeah,
he can't go back to being a villain now. And I've entertained the argument. Like, one of the big points of both the movie and the book is Jason actually a bad guy now, or did the Lazarus Pit make him go crazy? Like, that's a really big, open-ended question that's left in the series. Ultimately, I think because of DC's executive decisions, yeah, it was the Lazarus Pit is just now the answer. And I think we all would rather have the question and the possibility than that hard answer. You know?
Mm-hmm. For me, I probably want the hard answer the other way, because I'm like, the Lazarus Pit didn't make him have a phone call vote to reveal Damian and Dick Grayson's identities. That was all his own fucking bitterness at the meta reason he died. Like, shit like that's so good. Like, Morrison literally found the way to make a 21st century Batman villain by taking the guy who fans voted to death and making that a character. Making every single argument and like hot take of like regular people in the streets, oh, why is it Batman just killed the Joker? They make that a character. They make the most sensational 90s comic book push, and they put that in Gotham, and Jason pushes himself as hard as DC tries to push him, and it's brilliant because it's like an attack on the idea of Batman. It's not just DC's Punisher, but without the layers of fantastic story Frank has under his belt. It's anti-Batman, because anti-Batman isn't the Punisher. Anti-Batman is a whole of a beast.
And I mean, what makes that story so interesting is there's this extra level of bitterness because of Battle for the Cow. You've read that one, I assume, then.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Side note, Jason Todd has one of the coolest fucking evil Batman costumes ever. All the designs from Dark Knight's Metal can go eat a bag of dicks.
I like the Joker one.
Yeah, Batman Who Laughs is alright. Everything else is...
Jason's his fucking kick. He's like Shredder mixed with Darth Vader mixed with Batman.
And he's got guns.
So many fucking guns.
That is exactly what the Punisher, if you were Batman, would be like. Yeah, no, like the whole Jason becoming Dick Grayson's villain was really set up in Battle for the Cowl in a just fantastic way. It's only 3 issues. It's not like gonna change your life or anything, but man, do I dig it. I can't help but just love the idea that Jason's trying to take the mantle of Batman and turn it into what he wants Batman to be. God, that was such a great concept. And Tim and Dick are sitting here fighting over if Batman should even continue. Meanwhile, Jason's, running with it. I thought that was such a great way to play the dynamic between the three of them. I love it.
Yeah, I definitely agree. That was a high point of his character simply because, again, you propel him... Because then he doesn't even have to just be a Gotham villain. If he just take the idea of this is someone who's trying to take all of Batman's lessons and tools, and he has all the skills of everything Batman knows, but he's corrupting it into his own image of what this like homeless kid who had to steal tires off the Batmobile would want that to be. You could have him fight Superman in like a really fucked up inversion of all their fights. You can have him fight the Question or Green Arrow as just like a villain that's really competent of like what Prometheus always tries to be but can't get because he doesn't have like the star power. You could really just make Jason Todd just like part of the background of the DC universe. I like always when he turns up is like oh shit, this is a threat.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know, it's just disappointing. It's one of those situations of just editorial making really bad decisions with the character, I feel. Because Morrison had to incorporate him into Batman Inc. because of editorial, and it's probably some of the most awkward stuff in Batman Inc. There's just like a lot that you could tell with very few people wanted to do it this way. And I think that's kind of why Winnick just stepped away from the character after a while. When you only
lost
had
his baby.
Yeah, when you only had 3 guys who had any interest in or who really had a good voice for the character, and you have Didio and the rest of DC editorial saying, no, we got to make him a good boy who still kills people. And it's just you can't have it both ways. If you wanted to do the story where Jason redeems himself and everything, you can do it, but then he has to stop killing people.
And that was a thing for a while as well. It was like everyone wanted to write this is the story where Jason redeems himself. And he just kept doing it. Like every Jason Todd story, like especially like most like recent ones, is he's trying to make up for his past sins, and this big moment at the end is when he'll redeem himself. But like we're way past that at that point when he's just having casual team-ups with Nightwing.
Yeah. I want to go to the alternate universe where Grant Morrison got to write Dick Grayson Batman for 10 years.
Don't even mention that. Fuck Jason. There's a whole lot of stuff we could have got in that. Jason's just like the cherry on the glorious dick cake.
Sorry. I didn't expect dick cake to come up in this conversation.
You should have. You really should have.
I'm ashamed of myself for not. Yeah, Jason Todd. I guess Jason Todd, more than any other comic book character, is kind of the land of missed opportunities. Just from his entire existence, when you think about it. I didn't even think about him being written better as Robin. That's a really good point. And then just as awful as he was mishandled once he was back as Red Hood. Damn it.
It's very... I think it's probably a lesson because, like, as Batman fans, we're pretty privileged with, like, the wealth of good stories and, like, concepts that have been paid off and, like, really strong villains, and they've all got their own, like, stories you can point to. Oh, this is a really good Two-Face story. This is a really good Riddler story. You can, like, name it off. Like, a lot of other characters don't have that, and they have a lot more of this, of, like, character was introduced and the potential wasn't lived up to. So I guess Jason's just, like, the most exposed part of that in Batman's mythos, whereas a lot of other DC characters probably have like hundreds of like Jason Todds of really good ideas that didn't get paid off because of editorial.
Yes and no. I feel like a lot of characters don't have the same kind of editorial attention because they're not as high profile as a Bat character.
That's
if
true.
that makes sense. Like, I think if Jason Todd were like a Green Arrow character, he would have gotten his entire journey until the writer on him was done. And we never really would pay much attention to it. Like, the people that are Green Arrow fans would be super into it, and then that's probably about it. It'd be a nice, completely wrapped up with a bow. The fact that Jason Todd is, you know, a character in the most popular DC characters, you know, wheelhouse, marketing editorial got all over his ass. I think that's what happened.
It's also kind of like he was fated, given Dark Knight Returns, the biggest, like, most iconic Batman thing that's always talked about, and is in probably the most pop culture like exposure to his comic book Batman. Jason Todd's dead in that before he even died in the regular comics, so his first exposure to the mass public is just as the costume in the trophy case.
Damn, I didn't know that. I guess I just didn't timeline that shit out in my head. That's hilarious.
Yeah, because like I think you probably checked this out as well, because like, then Miller actually went back and recently wrote how his Jason died in like The Dark Knight, The Last Crusade, which is legitimately one of the better things modern Miller's ever wrote. So if you're interested in like a more, I think it's better than Death in the Family, I'll tell you that.
I mean, I've had...
Again, not a high bar.
Yeah, I've had hemorrhoids better than Death in the Family. Yeah, fair enough. Okay, well, let's go ahead and go on to recommendations. Despite its faults, I will recommend the original Winnick comic because I feel like some of the stuff he gets to do just... It shows more depth to the character. Again, the relationship with Talia. Everyone complains about the Superboy punch. It's literally like 2 panels at the beginning of the comic, and it never comes up again. So I cannot stand that people constantly bring up the Superboy punch, and that's why the Jason Todd comic Resurrection is worse. No, the Lazarus Pit's still part of the story. The Superboy punch is like 2 panels. And I'll also recommend Red Hood Lost Days. I feel like that one kind of got forgotten about, but again, it's Winnick writing it. If I'm like 90% sure it's Winnick writing it. So that's kind of his baby. And then, you know, I'll definitely recommend Battle for the Cowl. The thing I like about those 3 is it's a very consistent voice for Jason Todd. I really like what Morrison does, but he does drastically like change just the way Jason Todd acts.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's a little bit of a harder step for some people. How about you?
Well, you've kind of listed off a lot of like his Red Hood appearances, and as we've kind of expressed here, there's not a lot else after that as him as Red Hood, which is worth checking out. So, aside from, again, if you expect a different Jason, but a Jason that I feel like really like hones in on a lot of the potential of the character, check out Batman and Robin by Grant Morrison, the Dick Grayson, Damian Wayne run, just because it's fantastic as is, and Jason gets to kick a lot of ass in it. And then I'll come and give you 2 recommendations for him as Robin, just because I also feel like that's a really... Robin's the biggest name he ever was, and I feel like it's an important thing to draw on that. So, Batman Gothic has Jason Todd as Robin in it. When you don't really get to see a lot of good Batman stories, they're just in the background. Jason Todd's the current Robin. So I'd recommend that to a lot of people. Not Batman Gothic, sorry. Batman the Cult has Jason Todd as Robin in it. I'd recommend that for people to read. And also, again, Dark Knight, The Last Crusade as like the better version of how Jason Todd died.
I mean, I can't believe someone recommended a Miller comic that came after the 1980s.
I know, right? It feels legitimately like 1980s Miller. It's kind of freaky. But not fantastic 90s, like early Daredevil Miller, where it's just like, oh, it's all right.
Okay. I mean, I'll take that over. What the fuck am I reading? Um, is Wonder Woman a whore? What? Um, yeah.
What is Superman's elbow?
Yeah. Okay. Well, Alfie, thanks for doing this one.
No worries. I'm glad we got to talk about this. It's kind of been bubbling under the surface of any like Batman fans topic, and it's important because, goddamn, everyone's got to beat Jason Todd with a crowbar eventually.
Yeah. God, that new character design. The only thing I like about it's the crowbar.
But he's got a hood, man, because he's the Red Hood.
Like, you could just incorporate that into his design like Arkham Knight did. Never mind. I'm done. Alright, everyone, thanks very much for watching. Bye. I'm the philosopher.
And I've been the geek for fun.
And we are your geeky gentlemen, and we will be discussing things.